Incredible flavours, even better stories. One pour, 10 minutes. Aussie bourbon lovers sharing bourbon with Australia.
All right, here we go.
Oh, that was a little pop.
Little pop. What are we having, H?
We're having a Green River Bourbon whiskey.
And we've got a special guest,
Yes, we do.
Caryn Wells, the national brand ambassador for Green River, is joining us. Hey, Caryn.
Good morning. Good night. Oh, I just screwed that up. We'll do that again.
No, this is good.
Hey,
we like
how
that
is
it's
it?
our
It's
yeah,
right for us.
it's our evening and it's your morning. We appreciate you getting up for a breakfast bourbon for us. This is so good. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Happy to be here.
So it's a Kentucky straight bourbon. Can you tell us a bit about what we're having?
Yeah, so what we've got is 70% corn, 21% rye, 9% malted barley. This is what we call our flagship bourbon. This one came out in February 10th of 2022, and we distill, age, and bottle everything ourselves. So we're really proud of this one. This has just been a hit since we launched it, and it just keeps growing in popularity.
Amazing. So good. And it's definitely not our first time trying this.
No.
We're lucky to have had a few of these, which is pretty cool. And we love it. We love
don't
it
judge.
so much.
We don't judge.
Very appreciative of you not judging. Tell us a bit about, so I think definitely in Australia we haven't had Green River. Maybe, you will know this. Did we have Green River before you relaunched it? Can you tell us a bit about the history of Green River and where it's come from?
Sure. So the history, it goes all the way back to 1885, and this was considered the most widely advertised whiskey in the world. So for that, you very well could have had this over in Australia in 1885 to 1918, maybe even a little past that, because it won awards all over the place. It won awards in Paris. It won awards in Italy. It won the World's Fair multiple times. So when we say that this was the most widely advertised whiskey in the world, it really is an understatement, because it was all over the place. John McCulloch, who started the distillery to begin with, he was I think a marketing genius before his time, before he really knew it, and so you very well could find some old bottles, maybe some old dusties, or even just some empty memorabilia, anywhere over in there, if you got people that like to collect antiques.
That's so cool. And so, and I like to learn new things every day. The thing I learned today, and I hope I'm about to learn more anyway, but is that Owensboro had been like a really big hub before Prohibition for bourbon, right?
Yeah, we really were. Back in the day, we had about 50 active distilleries. We sit right on the Ohio River, which was the main thoroughfare for moving products of any type, whether it was grain or goods or anything. So it made it a central area for it, along with the fact that in this side of the state, we produce a lot of corn, a lot of wheat, and back in the day, even now, we still do some tobacco. But so, with corn being the main product and ingredient in the bourbon, it made sense that we were the natural hub for it.
Awesome. And Prohibition kind of saw an end of Green River, or did it come back again after that? Yeah,
so the story goes that everything was going great. 1835 to 1918, Green River was, like I just said, the most widely advertised whiskey in the world. It was considered the most expensive whiskey ever sold. 20 barrels of it were traded for a share of a Colorado gold mine, and that mine ended up panning out, no pun intended. And the biggest thing that Green River was known for during that 33-year span, though, was in 1897, the United States Marine Hospital awarded Green River Whiskey the contract to be the official whiskey of the U.S. Marine Hospital and Public Health Systems.
Oh, wow.
That was like, it was like a spirits contest that you could enter, and Green River won that contract. Well, we held that contract for the next 18 years. So every year you had to apply for it, and I think that's pretty impressive to say that, to be a medicinal spirit back then, it had to be a bottled and bond product. It had to be quality, and so to know that we had that award for 18 years was pretty impressive. Things things were going along great, and it was a Saturday night in August of 1918 that a trash fire took out the entire distillery in 3 hours. And that was, it was massive. It was about 45,000 barrels of whiskey. And back in the day, that had an estimated, the value back then was over $3 million. Today's value would put it closer to $60 million. So, blink of an eye, it was gone. So it was that pretty much did it in, because Prohibition started in 1920. The distillery didn't get rebuilt, until after Prohibition. The brand tried to come back. It got sold a couple of times after Prohibition. John McCulloch, who started it, he passed away in 1927, so he didn't live through Prohibition to be able to rebuild anything himself. But the brand just kind of died out in the 40s and the 50s. And so when we brought it back to life and relaunched it in 2022, that was after over almost 130 years of it being absent from this property.
Yeah. So when people see Green River as more like something more recent, that's probably why, like that only sort of coming back.
That's exactly why.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like coming out of the ashes of everything, just rebuilding it all. And I think something that always stands out for me with our brand too is we're one of the very few distilleries that has actually brought the original name back to the original location.
Yep.
We see a lot of brands come back, or we see a lot of new names coming out that are actually old brands, but they're never, or rarely are they at the original location. So for us to actually be on the original property, I think the Kentucky Distillers Association said it right when they said that we're on hallowed ground, because we are. I mean, that's really cool to be on that original property.
That's incredible. The number on the front of the bottle here, I'm just looking, it says DSP KY10. Does that go right back from when you first started, or is that more recent?
Yes. So, no, the significance of that is huge. So in the United States, when you're a distiller, you get a DSP number, which stands for Distilled Spirits Plant.
Yeah.
And whether you're in, we're in Kentucky, so we're all DSP-KY and then a number. If we were in Texas, we'd be DSP-TX and a number. But in Kentucky, our numbers were actually handed out in order, and they stay with the property or they stay with the original owner. And our number stayed with our property. So we actually have the 10th oldest licensed distillery number in the state of Kentucky. Wow. And that's huge because, for a brand that people are just now starting to hear about again, the significance of it for me is the fact that, we're 10, Maker's Mark is 44, Buffalo Trace is 113, Jim Beam's 230. So you can see how old our brand is just by that number.
How much is what we're drinking today similar to what it would have been when that first, DSP 10 would have been released? How similar or how different would it be?
Gosh, Dave, that's a great question. Unfortunately, I don't know what the exact recipe was. We don't have the original recipe to what Green River was. We do have bottles of old Green River. I think the oldest bottle we have here on property is a 1912 bottle. And we could tap into that, and we could pull a sample and let our chemists do their thing and probably recreate it pretty much to the exact thing. But we run the risk then of you've just compromised a 1912 bottle of Green River whiskey. So, it's like, okay, good arguments on either side, but which way do you go? I would say that our mash bill now would be fairly similar, but I would also say that back in the day, it would be in more corn whiskey for the most part, with a lower amounts of the secondary grain being added in, simply because the whole premise of whiskey got started with farmers having too much corn, and what are you going to do with it? And so then they started making the moonshine, making the whiskey and everything. So
good thing they had too much corn.
I would like to say that it's close, right? Yeah. I know. So it's a beautiful thing. How are you doing on your pours?
Yes, it's so good. The thing that I love about it is how and I don't know how old it is. Are you allowed to tell us how old it is? It has a lovely richness to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So our core products, they are 5 years old. So that would be our high rye bourbon, our wheated bourbon, and our rye whiskey. They're all 5 years old. And then our latest release that we have, Foolproof, that is going to be 5, 6, and 7-year-old barrels. So a little bit older. You'll get a little richer color on it, little bolder flavors on it. But our core products are 5.
Yeah, great. And I think, like, for me, I feel like for a core product that, you know, it sits at this price point, it has that lovely richness, the kind of the brown sugars and the, you know, the darker fruit kind of flavors that I really like in a bigger bourbon. Yeah.
Yeah. I get the toffees, the butterscotches, the brown sugars. And for me, I'm very sensitive to maple syrup. So I always get, as it sits out, I get a lot of maple syrup notes coming out of it, which
the longer it sits in my mouth,
I just love it.
I'm getting a chocolatey caramel flavor.
Yep. I pair fudge with it a lot of times. I'll pair maple syrup. I'll pair butterscotch chips with it. Those are really good. I even like to use allspice. I think allspice really sums up, you know, a lot of times when we're making or using rye, we tend to get more peppers out of the grain itself. But I really feel like the way that we've blended this with the corn and the yeast strain that we use, that we end up getting a lot more baking spices out of it. And that just leaves a really nice warm flavor in your mouth without it being overbearing on anything.
Yeah, it's a lovely pour. It's so good.
It takes me back to Kentucky. I'm glad it rained at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, the first one we ever went to, because it was the Green River tent that I ducked into to get shelter. And I got stuck there playing that really cool game. It was shoot the shoe with the coin, and I was just like, this is the best. So I got Dave to come over, and we enjoyed the afternoon playing shoot the shoe and introduced ourselves to Green River.
Is that great, part of the history as well? The horseshoe?
No.
Yeah. Maybe we should explain it. Can we explain it, what it is? Because when you went on this fabulous list, at the bottom of the Green River bottles, you've got to get one of these, by the way.
Yeah.
They're readily available now in Australia, so you'll be able to grab them. But down the bottom of the bottle there is a horseshoe shape that you can then shoot a coin at and try to get it in. And it's harder than you'd expect, particularly after you've been enjoying the product.
Right. That's exactly it. Yeah,
but your shot was much better than mine.
It was really a happy accident. You know, when we brought this iconic brand back, we wanted to do it in a manner that really honored the history of it. So the design of the bottle was intentional because the original one of the original logos was a horseshoe. So it was important to have that as a symbol of the brand itself. So the bottle design was pretty intricate in that, and there's a lot of other little things with the bottle too that sometimes people don't know. But all the bottles, when you feel them all around the edges here, they're all kind of bumpy. It's like to emulate the rivets that were on the original logo. And then we added the tax stamp just as a sign. It's a faux tax stamp, but that's a picture of the Green River up on there. And then embossing Owensboro, established 1885. And then on the very back side, we've got the DSPKY10 is embossed as well. And all of that was to basically a nod to the past because that's how they used to do bottles. What we did not know that we did by creating that horseshoe, you got that little rise in the base, and that allowed a coin to slide right up underneath it. So we didn't know about it until after we launched. And then when we did, we got caught between a rock and a hard place because while it was so cool, we also didn't want people to go, oh, they just did that as a gimmick. And we wanted people to realize, no, this is a really good bourbon at a really reasonable price and an iconic brand from the past. So we kind of laid low on it the first year, and then as the popularity grew, we're like, you know what, we're going to have fun, and then what do we call it? We had to, what's the name, and I not trying to brag, but I did come up with Shoot the Shoe, so I should get some royalties off of that.
I know.
I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen, but who knows? Maybe one day.
It's so good. It's just one of the good things about drinking Green River. Thanks so much for coming on, and we're so excited that we can easily get it over here. There's loads of good bourbons we can get in Kentucky, but it's great to be able to get Green River over here now. So thanks so much for coming on, Caryn. Great to chat with you, and thanks for sharing some of the history with us.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Take care. Cheers.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you're connected with us on TikTok, Instagram and YouTube, and stay connected with us by clicking subscribe on your favourite podcast app.